Have you ever been writing your book and somewhere along the way you felt as though the plot simply stopped moving? You've got scenes, you've got characters, things are technically happening, yet every time you read the last few chapters, something feels wrong. The story drags, a reveal lands without any impact, or perhaps your characters disappear for far too long. Or you know what needs to happen next, but you can't find a believable path from here to there. And because you're looking at hundreds of pages, the problem starts to feel enormous. You begin wondering whether the whole plot is broken, whether you chose the wrong idea, or whether a better writer would know how to fix it. Sometimes the problem isn't your talent, your imagination, or even the individual scenes. Sometimes what's actually happening is the scenes are stacked in the wrong order. So today, I'm going to show you how to take your plot out of the manuscript, put it onto scene cards, and use one simple shuffle to find gaps, weak links, repeated beats, and the sequences that might bring the whole book back to life. So stay with me. If you feel called to write a book, but writer's block, procrastination, and self-doubt keep pulling you from the page, you're not alone, and you're not meant to stay stuck. Hi, I'm Maddison, author and life coach, and I've created this podcast as a creative space grounded in faith and mindset transformations to help you break through your blocks, gain creative clarity, and finally finish the book you're meant to write. So grab your cup of liquid gold and let's write the darn book together. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to Write the Darn Book. I'm your host, Maddison, and today we're talking about what to do when your plot feels stuck and you can't see what's causing the problem. I'm going to walk you through a practical scene card shuffle that you can use while you're drafting or in the messy middle or during revisions. It will help you see the shape of your story, test the order of your scenes, and make one useful structural change without tearing the entire manuscript apart. Now, what often happens is when a plot feels stuck, writers often assume they need a bigger idea. We think perhaps the next scene needs more drama, or the villain needs a new plan, or perhaps the protagonist needs another obstacle. So we add something in. We might introduce another secret, a subplot, or a dramatic event, because at least that feels like movement. But more events don't automatically create momentum. Momentum comes from connection. One scene changes something, and that change creates pressure that carries the reader into the next scene. A decision creates a consequence. A discovery creates a new question. A loss forces a different choice. And when that chain is working, the story moves even if the scene itself is quiet. When the chain's broken, you can have arguments, car chases, kisses, murders, confessions, and explosions, and the manuscript can still strangely feel flat. The difficulty is that the manuscript can hide this from you. When you read the book from page 1, you're seeing prose, dialogue, description, backstory, and all the words that you've spent weeks or months creating. You remember what you intended, and your mind fills in links that might not actually be on the page. And because you care about your work, every possible change can feel expensive. And I mean that more in an emotional sense. Moving one scene might affect continuity or require new transitions. So you keep trying to repair the plot inside the structure that's creating the problem. Scene cards can be a great way to change the scale of the decision. A 60-page act becomes 12 small cards on a table, and suddenly you're not dismantling your whole book, you're moving one rectangle of paper that's 6 inches wide to the left, and then you're asking, does the story work better with this scene moved here? That small distance can create the perspective that you couldn't find while staring at the whole document. Let me give you a simple example. Imagine a mystery manuscript where the protagonist discovers a damaged photograph in one scene, argues with her brother in the next, then visits an old family property several chapters later, and only then realises the photograph was taken at that property. On the page, each scene might be really well written. The argument contains emotion, the property visit has atmosphere, and the photograph feels intriguing. But the middle still drags. And when the scenes go onto the cards, the weak link becomes easier to see. The photograph creates a question, but the story leaves that question untouched for too long. The argument with the brother is emotionally important, but in its current position, it interrupts the line of curiosity rather than intensifying it. Now imagine moving the property visit directly after the photograph discovery. The protagonist recognises the location, goes there, finds evidence that her brother's lied, and then confronts him. The argument hasn't been deleted, but now it carries the force of what came before it. One moved scene changes the meaning of the next three. The photograph leads to the property leads to the discovery leads to the confrontation, and the confrontation creates a new rupture that pushes the story into the next act. That's the power of sequence. The individual pieces were already there. The manuscript didn't need a more talented writer or a dramatic new subplot. It just needed the existing scenes to create a stronger chain. And this matters emotionally because plot problems can become identity problems very quickly. You might look at a sluggish section and think, I can't plot. And you lose confidence and then you avoid the manuscript. You might start researching structure systems or considering a complete restart of your book. But the scene card shuffle helps you turn that judgment into a question. Instead of perhaps asking, what's wrong with me as a writer, you can instead ask, what changes if this scene happens earlier? That's a craft question, and craft questions give you something practical to test. So let's walk through the scene card shuffle. You can use physical index cards or sticky notes or a large table to spread them out in, perhaps even a digital board or your laptop with those software sticky notes, whatever works best for you. What matters here is being able to see each scene as a separate movable unit. Now, the first step is to create one card for every current scene. So write one scene on each card. Keep the description brief. 1 or 2 sentences is enough. You're not writing a beautiful summary of each scene. You're simply capturing what the scene does. For example, you might write, Mara finds the damaged photograph and recognises her mother in the background. Or it could be, Mara confronts Daniel about the missing money, but he turns the accusation back onto her. Add the point of view character, location, or timeline when that information matters. Then write one final line on each card. What changes by the end of this scene? And that change might be new information, a decision, an emotional shift, perhaps a setback or a commitment made, or a question the reader now needs answered. If you struggle to name what changes, just place a small question mark on the card and you've just found a scene that might need a clearer function. Now, the second step is to lay the cards out in their current order. So put the cards down onto a table exactly as the manuscript currently unfolds. Resist the urge to start fixing while you're still laying them out. And first, I want you to look down at them and actually see what you've written. Look for the overall rhythm. Where are the cards crowded with major events? Where do perhaps some quiet scenes all sit together? And does one character vanish for 6 cards? Does a subplot appear and then disappear? Or it returns so late that you've forgotten why it mattered? You're gathering information here. This isn't a judgment on the draft. A draft's job is to reveal the story. The cards are helping you see what the draft has revealed. Now, the third step is to check the causal chain. So start with the first card and ask, what does this scene cause? Then look at the next card. Does it happen because of the scene before it? Does it complicate what happened or answer one question while creating another? You want to feel some version of, because this happened, the character now does this. But this creates a problem, so they must do that. When the connection is only, and then another thing happens, circle the gap between those cards. And the gap might mean that the scenes need a different order. It might mean a decision is missing, or it might mean one scene belongs in a different part of the book entirely. Now, the fourth step is to look for 4 common structural problems. The first is a delayed consequence. Something significant happens, but its emotional or practical result arrives several scenes later. Try moving the consequence closer and see if that works. The second is repeated function. So 3 scenes might all show that the protagonist distrusts someone. You might need 1 strong scene rather than 3 similar ones. The third is a missing bridge. So you understand the character's next decision, but the reader hasn't seen the moment that creates it. Add a blank card where that bridge belongs. The fourth is misplaced information. A reveal might arrive before the reader's had enough context to care, or after the tension has already leaked away. Test it earlier or later. The fifth step is shuffle 1 card at a time. And this is where writers can become really excited or slightly terrified. And please keep in mind, you don't need to redesign the entire book in one afternoon. Just choose 1 weak link and move 1 card. Then reread the sequence again. Ask yourself what becomes stronger, what becomes confusing, what new possibility appears. You might move a confrontation earlier so that it creates the rupture that drives the middle, or you might move a quiet emotional scene later so that it lands after the character has earned that vulnerability. You might bring a clue forward, delay a reveal, or place a failure immediately before the decision it forces. Work with 1 move at a time so that you can feel what each change actually does. Testing a card position isn't a commitment to rewrite the manuscript. You're allowed to explore, because remember, you can put the scene back where it was. That permission matters, especially if changing the structure makes you feel as though you're destroying work you've already done. You're not destroying it. You are listening more closely to what the story might need. Now, step 6 is to use your creative wiring, because different writers will notice different things. If you tend to process visually, then color coding viewpoints or timelines or subplots might reveal patterns quickly. If you lean towards auditory processing, then read the card sequence aloud. Listen for the places where the story rhythm drops or a transition sounds abrupt. If you're kinesthetic, physically walk along the cards and notice where you hesitate or the movement feels heavy. And if you lean towards auditory digital processing, number the scenes and write the causal link between each pair in precise language. Remember, these are tendencies, not boxes. So combine whatever makes the structure easier to understand. Now, step 7 is about building the new spine before you rewrite. So once you've found an order with your scene cards that feels stronger, take a photo of the cards or copy the new sequence into a simple document. Then make a short list of what the shuffle affects. Perhaps one transition needs rewriting, a character might know something earlier, or a line of dialogue perhaps needs to change, or you might have noticed that 2 scenes can now be merged into one. This turns the structural insight into a manageable revision plan. You're no longer carrying the vague thought that the whole manuscript is broken. Instead, you have 3 specific changes, and that difference protects your confidence and your momentum. So here is what I would love you to do with your manuscript. Write every current scene on a card, lay the cards out in order, and choose the section where your plot feels weakest. Then move one card, only one. Test what happens when a discovery comes earlier, or a consequence moves closer, or an emotional scene lands after a more powerful trigger. You aren't trying to solve the entire book in one sitting. You're looking for one structural change that creates a cleaner chain of cause, choice, and consequence. Let the cards make the problem small enough for you to see it. Remember, a stuck plot doesn't automatically mean that your story is broken, and it certainly doesn't mean you've failed as a writer. Sometimes the manuscripts simply become too large and too familiar for you to see its shape clearly. So take the scenes out of the document, place them where you can see them, and let yourself move them without treating every experiment as permanent. One card might expose a missing bridge, one card might reveal that 2 scenes are doing the same job, and one card moved to the right place might give an entire act the momentum it's been waiting for. If the shuffle shows you that your structure is moving, but your protagonist's choices aren't, or they're not carrying enough emotional weight, have a listen to episode 67, which is called Writing Your Protagonist, How to Build a Main Character Readers Root For from page 1, because that might help you to strengthen up your character's journey and choices. All right, my friends, that's it for today. And please remember, you are the vessel for your story. So let the words flow through you and onto the page. Until the next episode, take care and let's write the darn book together. My friend, I hope today's episode gave you exactly what you needed for your writing journey. And if it did, would you take 30 seconds to share it with another writer who's struggling to start or finish their book? And if you're loving the show, I'd be so grateful if you left a quick review. It means the world to me and truly makes my day to know that this podcast is helping you. And as you head back into your week, I hope you feel more supported and connected to your creativity. And remember, you're a vessel for the story. So let the words flow through you and onto the page. All right, I'm off to refill my cup of liquid gold and go and do a little writing of my own. Take care, and I'll meet you back here in the next episode of Write the Darn Book.